This is an ABC News Yahoo News live stream. The Republican National Convention. Live from Tampa, Florida. Here are Amy Walter and Rick Klein.
The podium where Willard Mitt Romney will become the official nominee of the Republican Party tonight, just a couple hours from now. Until then, of course, we've got other great speeches to cover, as well as some really, really smart guests.
That's right. Of course, this will be Mitt Romney's night. This is the night for the history books. This is the night where America will nominate a Mormon candidate for president for the first time. Mitt Romney finishing his father's incomplete legacy. An enormous night for him, for a long-time quest for the presidency, and the beginning of the general election campaign that is going to kick off right now. It is essentially a tied race. Mitt Romney with a chance to reset things, hopefully get a little bit of a bounce out of this.
And we know, of course, that there's something else going on besides what's happening here at the Tampa Bay Times Forum. It's the weather and the real devastation now that is taking place in the Gulf states. And we're going to throw that to Matt Gutman. Matt, I know you're down there in Gulfport. Or actually, no, sorry, you're in New Orleans. You're down there in New Orleans. You were in Gulfport. But tell us what it looks like. What's happening there on the ground?
Hey, Amy, we're on this levee here that protected New Orleans during the storm, and I wanted to give you a sense first of the landscape. It's about 25 feet high on either side, and that's really what protected the lower Ninth Ward, which is where we are right now, from Isaac, and didn't protect it from Hurricane Katrina. And that is very important today because the folks who've been suffering all of this flooding today in communities just west of here and north of here, places like La Place, Louisiana, places you may never have heard of, but suffered tremendous evacuations last night, tremendous flooding. We saw waters rise 7-10 feet there, and overnight we drove in there. We saw hundreds and hundreds of guardsmen pulling people out by boat. They were bringing them in wet, bedraggled into these transfer centers and on the way to other shelters. Folks there had suffered much more than they expected to. Those waters rising much faster than they could flee. It never flooded before in a lot of these communities, and that's why the levees are again in the news. People say, well, the levees there aren't big enough. They don't have the federal funding to build them like they do here. And that's why the story has shifted more from wind, because what Hurricane Isaac lacked for in wind power, it certainly made up for in rain and flooding. All these communities, also to the north of here, same issue. There is a levee that is threatening to break from the Mississippi River that could threaten a community just north of here. 60,000 people told to evacuate immediately, given 90 minutes to pack up everything they had. Now, amazingly, Isaac was just a Category 1, but it walloped the entire Gulf Coast region, basically from the Florida-Alabama line all the way to western Louisiana. We saw tornadoes land yesterday, some of the fiercest weather we've seen in this entire storm, and I've been covering it all the way from Key West up to here. We saw yesterday pelting rain, torrential rain bands for hours and hours, also causing all of that tremendous flooding. There's going to be a lot of property damage here, and people are going to have to contend with the aftermath of this storm long after it passes. Rick, Amy?
All right, ABC's Matt Gutman in New Orleans. Thanks to you and to your terrific producer, Matt Jaffe, good friend of the politics team here at ABC News. And Amy, of course, Mitt Romney was in this arena just a few hours ago, walking through, getting a sense of this. This is a big moment for a campaign. Obviously, Mitt Romney's given plenty of speeches in his political career. None quite like this. None with this kind of crowd. None with this kind of stakes. None with this kind of potential energy and potential missteps sitting there for the former governor of Massachusetts.
Well, and they talk about him as an executive, a guy who likes to be very hands-on. Here he is directing the staff to move the teleprompters. I don't think he liked the way that they were angled properly.
That is a piece of video, by the way, Amy, that the Obama campaign is clipping and saving.
That's exactly
for the teleprompter-in-chief questions that will come out during the general election campaign. Let's go down to the convention floor where David Muir covers the Romney campaign for ABC News. Has been on the road all these months. And David, what's your sense from the Romney camp of what they need to accomplish? We have some early excerpts of this speech. What are they trying to communicate in the broadest terms about Mitt Romney tonight?
It's very interesting that they walk that fine line, Rick and Amy, I think, of being positive but also going after the president. And you see that sort of reflected in those first few graphs of what they've released to the media here shortly before we went on the air with World News. Off the speech, complimenting the president in the kind of hope that he brought for the American people 4 years ago. But basically says, can you hear me, Rick?
Okay, we're having some problems with David's audio. We'll get him back in a moment. Let's bring in ABC's Matthew Dowd. And Matthew, as we said, we came into this convention tied, basically tied. Do you expect a bounce? Do you expect to see that Mitt Romney emerges from this convention leading Barack Obama really for the first time in this race?
Well, if he doesn't, it would be unprecedented, because normally, and even they put out, as we've all talked about, even they put out a memo that said they were going to get the averages, a 10 or 11 point bounce. I think he absolutely has to get a bounce, because the president's about to hold his convention next week in Charlotte, and the likelihood is he'll get a bounce. And what Mitt Romney doesn't want to do is gone through a convention, given a big speech, gotten no bounce, and then get through the convention in Charlotte and actually be behind. Because as we know from history, no challenger, or only one challenger actually in the last 12 races has come from behind after the conventions are over, and that was Ronald Reagan in 1980.
All right, let's bring it back to David Muir. David, you were telling us a little bit about what Mitt Romney is trying to accomplish in this speech. Go ahead. David, have you got us?
Rick, I'm sorry. Yeah, now I can hear you. See, this is the luxury of live television here on the convention floor. But what I was saying before before we had a little bit of mic problem there was that from the excerpts that were released, we actually see that he's going to start out by talking about the hope that the American people had for President Obama 4 years ago. He says he wasn't the choice of our party, but people genuinely had hope that he would succeed. And then he says, basically he hasn't. It's a theme that we've heard of on the campaign trail along the way, that you often hear the governor say he's a good man, he's a good family man, but he's just in over his head is one of the lines that he's used along the way. So there's a taste of that at the top of the speech. But a couple of other things that I took note of. As he goes through the speech, he's going to talk about his parents, and he often talks about them. And his father, as you know, the former governor of Michigan, ran for president himself. He rarely talks about his mother's political aspirations, and I can't recall a time when I've been on the trail when he's actually gone there. Tonight he's expected to mention that his mother actually ran for Senate. He was there every step of the way, as we know, from reporting on him all these months and looking back at that time. And he watched his mother have a difficult time on the trail, but learned a lot of lessons from her. So we'll hear a little bit about that tonight. He'll talk about the relationship he has with Ann. She gave us sort of a preview of that a couple of nights ago when she said, this notion of a storybook marriage, that's not the case. This is a real marriage. And she got a thunderous ovation when she said that. But this is his chance to make his case. He had help from Ann Romney, from Condoleezza Rice, from Paul Ryan here last night, from Mike Huckabee, all people along the way helping to make his case. But tonight it's his shot. And as you say, it's the biggest opportunity for him to come out to show that he understands the needs of middle-class Americans and that there is a personal side to him that he's willing to share. Those of us who cover Mitt Romney know that he rarely likes to talk about himself, but as you know, when you're running for the President of the United States, part of that narrative is sharing who you are, what you believe, what makes you tick, and he's got to do that here on this stage tonight with millions watching. The campaign says they expect upwards of nearly 40 million people perhaps to be watching him tonight.
Well, David, that brings up a good point, which is how much of the speech is dedicated to the people actually watching on TV versus the people who are watching it here in the hall. Those are two very different audiences. And where do you think, when looking at the excerpts he's released thus far, where do you think he's putting most of that attention tonight?
What's sort of extraordinary, I mean, I love that question, because last night was the red meat for this convention hall. This hall was on its feet for Paul Ryan. He's relishing in this role as the vice presidential candidate, which often is the person who has to go immediately into attack mode. I don't think you're going to hear that tone from Mitt Romney tonight. Mitt Romney is obviously here. There's huge anticipation within this hall to hear their nominee, but he is talking to that larger audience as a whole. They know, this campaign knows, that this is the end of a long summer of campaigning, that many people in their lives, they have vacations, family trips, and that people are coming back to the TV sets, getting their children ready to go back to school as Labor Day nears. And this is his chance, as he said, behind that stage tonight, talking to Paul Ryan. He said, I'm looking forward to introducing myself to the American people. And I truly believe the governor means what he says when he says he's looking forward to defining himself. This is a campaign very frustrated by what they consider to be the caricatures of a man who was wildly successful and wealthy, and some believe tone deaf with some of those comments along the way on the campaign trail. They believe that's a mischaracterization, and tonight, Amy, as you point out, this is an opportunity on a much grander scale with Americans across this country watching to show that he's not the person that's been described along the way.
ABC's David Muir watching the action on the floor tonight. We'll be checking back with him throughout the evening. Of course, you can watch all the action right here at abcnews.com and yahoonews.com on our iPad app. Keep in touch with us via Twitter at Rick Klein, at Amy Walter. We'll be using your tweets. The hashtag is #2012GOP, and we should also note we're going to be dipping in and out of speeches tonight as we go on. If you want to watch the speeches in their entirety, you can watch them live streaming at abcnews.com or on our iPad app. Okay, those disclaimers out of the way. Matthew Dowd is back with us, and Matthew, we were talking a little bit about the bounce. It seems to me, in reading the excerpt of the speech, so this campaign has been very explicit about what it needs to do. They need women voters. We say we need women voters. If they need Latino voters, they say we need Latino voters. How do those kind of appeals work into a speech with the stakes as large as they are tonight?
Well, one of the things you don't want to do is you don't want to say what I want. You want to sort of allow it to be accepted, not sort of say I'm a strong leader, therefore people are going to believe I'm a strong leader. Every time politicians do that, it reminds me of what Margaret Thatcher said, which was she said being important is like being like a lady. You have to say you are, you're probably not. And so you got to be subtle about this to a bit. But I think it's exactly right. The audience for this speech is a very small audience. It is an audience of some Latino voters who voted for Barack Obama and don't like the direction of our country, and it's an audience of women voters who like Barack Obama but don't like the direction of the country and have some sort of queasiness about Mitt Romney. And that's his audience for tonight, and that's who he needs to appeal to. The other thing, as we all know, is there are basically 4 moments left for Mitt Romney in this course of this campaign. 4 big moments left in this campaign. And this is the first one. The other 3 other debates. But this is the first moment where he can actually do something to change the trajectory of this race.
Let's talk a little bit about the fact that Mitt Romney, at least his advisors are telling us, that he's going to go right at the Bain Capital issue. He feels like, his campaign feels like, it's been turned into a caricature, his business experience. He's going to bring people up on that stage before him to talk about his business experience. How much of a problem, though, is the Bain Capital time that he's had? I mean, it really has been turned into something of a caricature by Democrats. Can he really get it back, get that identity back with one speech?
Well, he can't get the identity back with one speech. It is a problem. They know it's a problem. They wouldn't be talking about it in this way if they didn't think it was a problem. I think what they want to do is at least try to neutralize it, so it maybe is no longer a huge weight on his ankle, that they can neutralize it. But if you think about Mitt Romney and the definitional parts of his career, he can't not talk about that part of his career. Just like I think he has to talk about his time as governor. These elements are something that for people to look at him is like, I can see that leader in the White House. I can relate to that person. I can see he's going to make the right decisions. He's got to talk about Bain. He's got to talk about his time as governor. And I actually think he has to talk a bit about Mormonism. He has to talk a bit about what that means.
We'll be watching tonight to see if he uses that word. We know he's going to be talking about his religion. We're going to have an invocation even by a Mormon leader. We're going to hear from some of his fellow Mormons. Matthew, we're going to turn our attention, as soon as tonight is done, up a little bit north from here to Charlotte, North Carolina, where the Democratic Convention a week from tonight will be Obama's big moment. How would you be advising a Democrat right now if you have to come hot on the heels of this Republican convention, regain the momentum, maybe cut into the bounce that you'd expect from the Republicans?
Well, one of the things they're obviously going to do is they're going to put Bill Clinton up, who's extremely popular among all Americans. And even if when we talk about this group that it needs appeal to, Bill Clinton is very popular. He's the last Democrat and they could go through all the things that he did, and this is the kind of policies that we believe in as opposed to the Republicans. They got to turn that. The benefit they have is the proximity of these conventions and the lateness of these conventions. It is a much easier ability to quash a bump when you have Labor Day and they're jammed together and it's this late in the process, because people now are going to start focusing on, as soon as that convention's over, it's going to be like, what's the next thing? And the next thing is the first week of October.
I want to talk about something we've been bringing up a lot during this week, and that's the enthusiasm gap. I mean, there seems to be a real lack of it, even here. And what you think that means going forward. I don't see a lot of Mitt Romney buttons. I don't see people running around in big hats that say, vote for Mitt Romney. It seems like people are coming here because they want to beat Barack Obama. Is that the kind of thing that should worry Mitt Romney at the end of the speech, if he doesn't get the rousing, people jumping up and down kind of reaction?
I think if they're not worried today that's necessarily a problem, then it's political malpractice. It's a huge problem. If after tonight people aren't running out the door saying, God, I can't go wait to work in my precincts, I can't go wait to do this. It is, if you look about history, every challenger that has beat an incumbent president, which is very hard to do, has beat an incumbent president not only with, I don't like the incumbent, but there has to be a for. There has to be a passion for it. Bill Clinton had it in 1992. Ronald Reagan had it in 1980. All the people that beat incumbents beat it with a pro.
All right, ABC's Matthew Dowd. You'll be with us back tonight, I am sure, and back on our special event over on the ABC Broadcast Network as well. Matthew, thanks for being here.
And in good internet fashion. Actually, he does this on broadcast as well. Running shoes and jeans.
Wait, you just gave away one of the trade secrets. That just broke all TV code.
Listen,
I can't believe that.
It's okay. He likes to boast about that.
Good for his image. You're probably right about that. Well, Amy, we have seen some excerpts, and one theme that I'm surprised by in seeing in this speech is we've heard a lot about love this week. Unconditional love is another part of this. I don't know if it's optimistic speech, an upbeat speech, but a lot of love. It's just not a word, Mia love, of course, but it's not a word that I expected to hear that much at a political convention. This hasn't exactly been a paragon of loving in this campaign.
Well, when you think about how negative this campaign has been, between the ads and the back and forth on the campaign trail, I think both of these men need to come out and say, look, at the end of the day, I'm still a pretty nice guy.
Exactly.
And I love my wife, I love my family, and I am not just simply a machine that goes out there and tries to destroy my opponent. Well, I'm really excited to be joined by a fellow Chicagoland area person here. This, of course, is Congressman Peter Roskam. Unfortunately, he represents my rival high school, but I'll get over it. I'll let you sit in this chair. You know, what's interesting, I know we have you here at the Republican convention, but I want to talk to you about somebody that you know is going to speak next week, and that's a guy you served with in the Illinois State Legislature, of course, Barack Obama. Tell me what you think Democrats are thinking about coming on the heels of this. What kind of Barack Obama do you expect to show up in Charlotte in a week from now?
I think there's got to be a very careful Barack Obama who shows up, because if he goes back to the 2008 playbook, that's ringing hollow right now. And that's, I think, a very dangerous place for President Obama to be if he wants to seek re-election. You know, so I'm from suburban Chicago, as you know, and the president is about 12 points down in my district than he was in 2008. So to me, I think he's got to deal forthrightly with Paul Ryan. Ryan is a person who is able to go into the Blair House situation and say, hey, you're double counting here. This is not making sense. And the Barack Obama that I debated in the Illinois Senate was occasionally showing flashes of being very thin-skinned. There's been a lot of reporting about that, but a very thin skin. And if he enters into this contest now in these next 60 days with this thin skin, the country doesn't want to hear it, because for the first time, it's not about him. It's about people, their jobs, the situations. Paul made a reference to it yesterday, kind of the joke about living in your your childhood, your bedroom, looking at faded Obama posters. That's funny because it's ringing true. You know, there's an element of truth to that. So I think the president's got to be very careful.
How is this election not about him? You talk to people in the service
You're right.
about Barack Obama.
Yeah, I think I overstated that. But I think in the same way, it wasn't about, I guess what I'm saying is, last time it was about President Obama, Barack Obama, the symbolism of his presidency, the symbolism of his candidacy. There was a winsomeness to it, an invitation to be a part of something larger. And so people that gave their confidence to President Obama last time, but it was not a confidence that they were just squandering. Now they feel like, hey, I trusted you. And now gasoline at home for me is $4.25 a gallon. My healthcare situation is very different than what you've described to me, and I'm getting increasingly anxious about where the debt is going in our country. You've offered no substantive solutions. I've given you every opportunity. I'm going to listen to these guys to have hear what they have to say.
Well, let's talk about the other guy, about Mitt Romney. You're a member of Republican leadership in the House. Mitt Romney is the president of the United States. Does he have an army?
Oh, Mitt Romney will have an army, and Mitt Romney will have an army that's based largely on these ideas. His decision to put Paul Ryan on the ticket created a buoyancy among House Republicans who made some very substantive decisions over the past 18 months. The House GOP said, look, we're gonna act boldly. We're gonna put a budget out there that we think we can persuade people and invite people, and there's some solutions here. Let's put it out there. And there is a level of confidence that you sense from all these Republican members of Congress that feel as if, wow, this is an exoneration of the work that we've been doing, and now this is a part of the national ticket. It's not about us, but ultimately it's about a decision to move forward, and there's a level of confidence there. It's hard for me to describe it to you because it's palpable. You can feel it.
There are a lot of people talking about what Mitt Romney needs to do, because the fact is, as you pointed out, folks are disappointed, the economy's not doing well, and yet this race is still tied. He's not ahead yet. So who does he need to be in this speech?
Oh, I think what he needs to be very careful and to be himself, to communicate authentically who he is. Look, this is a guy that has enjoyed not just a lot of success in his professional life, which people are talking about, success in his business life, professional or political success, but he's had a lot of success from a family point of view, and there's a lot of people that like him. So the name of the game is communicate that. And this is a forum where that's an easy thing to do because it's a group that's predisposed to like him. And I think what he needs to do is to continue to communicate authentically to the American public. This is who I am. This is my vision. And come along and join with me.
I have one,
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just have one more question about Paul Ryan interacting, if he's indeed the vice president, with his former colleagues. You remember there's another guy from Chicago named Rahm Emanuel.
We've heard of him.
And his job was, because he came from the House, they thought he would be a great surrogate and the guy, the emissary. There was a lot of friction there at the end of the day. Can somebody who goes from the House, when he has a very different boss now, who do you think Paul Ryan will be when he comes to see you? How much do you trust that he's going to be the same Paul Ryan that was a House member versus the Paul Ryan who's now working up at 1600 Pennsylvania?
Well, let me suggest that temperamentally and in terms of personalities, Rahm Emanuel and Paul Ryan are two very different people. I'll leave that there. So I think what Paul has, what I've observed about Paul and working with him and on the Ways and Means Committee and also working with him on votes on the budget that we've talked about in the past, is this is a guy that is highly interactive. So in other words, he's actively listening as we were putting the budget together with his colleagues saying, how does this present to you representing a district in Missouri? How does this sound in Florida? How does this sound in New York? And being highly collaborative. So I think he's going to bring those skips. And
you would trust him to listen to you guys, and you would trust him if he has to cut a deal with you that he'll be true to what he's
I think so. Look, he is somebody who we have observed came to Washington, D.C. to do something and not to be somebody. Never in this debate, never in my service with Paul, has he ever been a person that has said, hey, look at me. He's been, hey, let's fix this. And as a result of that attitude, now the whole country is looking at him. And so, yeah, he does enjoy a lot of confidence and a lot of support among his colleagues.
All right, Congressman Peter Roskam, Republican from Illinois, and we are asking all of our guests to sign the iPad. He has done it. Land of Lincoln. That's nice.
It's Land of Lincoln.
That's very nice.
We're at a Republican convention.
Lots of
Land of Lincoln.
Come on.
Next time we need you to draw the
state of
Illinois. At least
Illinois.
you didn't draw the New Trier motto.
All right.
You are provoking me now.
That's what I do. That's what I do.
It is on
Right
already
here.
early tonight, Amy. Congressman Roskam, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks very much.
joining us.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Well, of course, we're going to turn to Barack Obama very shortly, and it will be interesting to see how that transition comes, if it's a soft transition or a hard transition. We're going to be back in politics right away. We're seeing the Obama campaign not really wanting to let up any space, any oxygen to the Romney campaign. They've been out there this week, even with the storm delaying things. They've been out there, but they haven't really breaking through with anything. I wonder if that changes the Romney calculation next week.
Well, we talked to some of the Romney advisors today who said they absolutely were going to come to Charlotte and try to do the same sort of, now it's called bracketing, where you show up at at the other parties' events and get your message out there. But what I found, I don't know if you found the same thing, which was between the weather and just trying to keep up with what was going on the floor here, getting the Democratic message just kind of rang a little bit hollow.
All right, we are now joined by a man who is never hollow because he is always substantive. He is the man. He is Sam Donaldson, ABC News legend. I like calling you a legend because I know it bothers you. The gentleman from New Mexico.
Well, the word legend is one word away from the word calcified.
Oh, no, never.
That's
never.
impossible.
Never. We shall not. So, what do you think? New stage, a little bit smaller feel, a little tighter feel out there. How does it affect Mitt Romney?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, Mitt Romney just has to be himself and make the sale. And all the window trappings and whether it's a brown wood or not, it makes no difference.
So what is the sale, Sam? What does he have to sell?
Well, we all know that his problem is he doesn't connect with the majority of people in this country. not his fault in the sense he's not a bad man, obviously, but he doesn't live their life. He hasn't lived their life, and he hasn't learned how to say, like the old hound dog, I feel your pain, and make them believe that he does understand them. So tonight he's going to do his biography. That's right. His faith. That's right. His plans for the future, from the standpoint of all the programs and what have you. He will remember that third department he might want to. But then it basically has to come across as someone that they believe really does understand them. I don't know how he's going to do that, but I'll be watching.
And isn't that part of the problem, though? And we've had so many people come and tell us what he needs to do is be authentic. But part of the problem that he has is, what does that mean, right? Because that's been the knock against him, is he's had so many different personalities.
Yes, he has to be authentic. He has to be himself. His problem is himself hasn't connected with the American people. Again, not his fault in any sense, not that he's a bad person. He is just someone who has lived a different life and has not really had those experiences. And he may very well feel that he'd like to correct the problems of this country. But he hasn't been able to project that he understands them in a visceral way, in an emotional way. Now, can he do that tonight? Being the person, as you say, that's who he is. I'll be watching.
You will indeed. And tell us about the Mormon issue. We hear that we're going to hear more about the Mormon religion tonight than we have before. He has to do it. Yeah. How do you do it? Do you have to say the word? Do you have to explain to people what this religion is?
You can't explain it. The plates came across the sea in a rowboat and they were planted in upstate New York. You can't explain that. You just have to say that you're a man of faith, that you believe in your church, you believe in your God. He is the Christian God, and you're not ashamed of it at all. You're proud of it. I mean, that's all you can do.
And Sam, we were in an arena just like this 4 years ago, where Sarah Palin just took this place by storm.
Oh, you're suggesting he should talk about a lipstick on the pig?
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not. I am asking what.
I've never seen anything like that. I love that thing. You know?
It was a great line.
It was.
We saw maybe some flashes like that last night. I think the Fate of the Obama posters and the AC/DC and Led Zeppelin references may have touch of the same kind of flash, the same kind of zing to it. But
well, I'm so out of it. When Paul Ryan started the AC/DC thing, I thought, well, wait a moment, where is he going with that?
These kids today, what are they listening to? But can he do anything? I've just been struck the whole time. I feel like this is a convention that's been at about 80%. It's not at 10% or 20%, but it's not at 100%. It's not at 110%. You felt you were overflowing with emotion at both conventions last time around. This convention, it's a convention.
And the American public senses that. Our Nielsen ratings, by our, I don't mean ABC's alone, the entire broadcast news media, from I think 4 years ago on Tuesday night, was 17 million viewers fewer. Right. And it's not because we didn't carry the convention in its high points. It's because people said, hey, there's nothing going on here that we're interested in. We'll watch ESPN.
Right, or the TLC show, apparently.
Right.
That Honey Boo Boo, who I just learned about. Do you know about this person?
No, again, it's like AC/DC.
Right, you're not gonna spend a whole lot of time doing that. But maybe they are actually just more reflective, the folks in this hall, of the general public as well, which is the general public doesn't believe it, and the people in this hall don't believe it, that one person is going to be able to turn this all around overnight.
We know that the general public is fired up in the sense they don't like what's going on. They're upset with Washington. They're upset with this country the wrong direction. So you'd think, well, the general public would be fascinated to learn who's going to correct it. Maybe they don't think anyone can. I hope that's not the case. If they lose faith in our system, we're all lost.
By the way, I just want to let you know, following our Twitter stream, a fan of yours says she wants you to get on Twitter immediately.
Is that ever going to happen, Sam?
I mean, it's time. It's time.
I got a couple of horses out in New Mexico. I should name one of them Twitter. Hey,
I'm on Twitter.
No,
it's not like you have nothing to say, Sam.
I have a cell phone.
Yes.
And my kids made me get an iPad. I love them both and all of that. But I don't tweet and probably won't. I don't have a Facebook page and probably never will. And I'm not dismissive of people who do.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's generational, folks. It's generational.
I still think at Stuff Sam Donaldson Says would be an
brilliant
hit on the internet. Sam,
could I make any money that way?
I
bet you could if you trademarked it. I'm sure you could.
To outlive my money. You know how people do eventually.
Well, we'll take care of that if you insist, of course.
Ben,
Sam,
are you listening?
Yeah, exactly. Sam, lastly, you've been through a lot of conventions, and you know that there are great speeches, there are good speeches, there are not so good speeches. What do you expect from Mitt Romney tonight? Is he going to hit this one out of the park? I don't know if it's possible to give a really bad speech at a convention. You get it's the teleprompter, the audience, all that, but it will be good or great.
He's not going to fall on his face. He's going to be Mitt Romney. Now, what did you think the last time you heard Mitt Romney give a speech? Now, he'll be more careful this time. He's practiced this time, I understand. It will be that speech in the sense that that's what we're going to get. And we're all going to be generous in the sense of, as long as he doesn't fall on his face, say, hey, it's a great speech for the Republicans. He laid out his program. He told people who he was. But we won't know what the people out there think until November 6th.
Right. It's just a typical speech, but with a lot of balloons.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's really the difference.
Yeah.
ABC's Sam Donaldson.
And we're here to prick the balloons.
Oh, indeed.
Wow.
An honor and a pleasure as always, Mr. Donaldson. Thank you, sir.
Amy.
Absolutely. Sam, absolute pleasure. Someday, maybe we will get, I think you should trademark at stuff Sam Donaldson says.
If there's someone smart
and
out there,
they will do it right now
we
because
could get it trending on Twitter by the end of the night.
That would be brilliant.
Okay, so let's do. Sam, of course, a lot of conventions. Some of them have been good. Some of them have not so good. There have been interesting ones along the way. We've been doing convention flashbacks throughout this week. Take a look at one of the more prominent conventions past.
Age has its advantages. Let me be the bridge to an America that only the unknowing call myth. Let me be the bridge to a time of tranquility, faith, and confidence in action. And to those who say it was never so, that America has not been better, I say you're wrong. And I know because I was there, and I have seen it, and I remember. We have even lost, but we have lasted, and we have always come through. What enabled us to accomplish this has little to do with the values of the present.
Well, that, of course, was the 1996 convention. Bob Dole was the nominee. Jack Kempes is vice presidential candidate.
I think I called it one of the more memorable conventions.
I was really wondering.
That was a misstatement of fact.
Yes,
I should apologize that for the record.
It was. And Todd Purdom joining us from Vanity Fair. And, of course, the most famous or infamous thing to come out of the 96 convention for most people was what? What do you remember?
The Republican convention?
No, or either convention.
Well, the 96 convention was Dick Morris's resignation on the last day of the Chicago convention.
Brilliant.
But when that speech was happening in San Diego, I was actually on vacation with President Clinton in Jackson Hole, driving across the pass to Idaho with some Clinton's aides who were trying to listen to it on the radio. And they were delighted when Senator Dole said that about letting me be the bridge to the past because they thought it was a disaster.
Yeah.
So.
Because that was the infamous bridge to the 21st century speech. All right. So you've been doing some live blogging from the convention. I noted you had a little sarcasm in some of your posts, which is really unique for you.
What was sarcastic to you, though?
The one where you mentioned the 10 most or 12 most depressing sounding events at the.
Oh, no. That's my colleague Julie Weiner.
Oh, okay.
No sarcasm.
I'm just
sorry.
a dull.
Oh, okay. I thought that was you. We pulled that up. We thought that was you. All right. So, give us your take of this convention thus far.
Well, I think it'll be fascinating to see what Governor Romney can do last night, because my takeaway from Paul Ryan's appearance last night was that this is really his convention in a very important way, more than Governor Romney's. This audience is for him. It's his generation's fight now. He and the Younger Turks, or the party that appeared last night before he appeared, they have the heart and soul of these delegates. They have the core of the base, and I think whatever happens in November, he's positioned to be the future voice of the Republican Party and the conservative movement more broadly.
So let me ask you, you wrote a great book of short profiles on presidents a year or two ago. Where does Mitt Romney rank in that world? Who does he compare to in that idea? If he ends up being sort of a transitional figure in a party, not a transformational figure, not a game-changing party figure, but who do you think of as a similar type of president?
Well, at one level, he ranks in the panoply of awkward presidents, and we have had awkward presidents, whether it's Richard Nixon or the first President Bush in some ways. So you don't have to be a smooth, polished performer, even the television age, to win. Governor Romney is that classic Republican example of the person whose turn it was. He's been fighting for this for more than 6 years, a little bit like Senator Dole. Right. They had to, as John McCain's mother said 4 years ago, hold their nose and give it to him. So, he's earned it the hard way.
Except it really was a hard way. I mean,
it was a very hard way.
This was not this guy is not coming into the convention after sweeping through and doing that. So, did it take a toll on the enthusiasm here? Is that why we're not seeing the big buttons. We're not seeing a lot of people wandering around with hats and lots of paraphernalia that says Romney on
Well, yes, in fact, you're seeing people run around with Ron Paul paraphernalia, Ron Paul
More of that.
buttons.
Right.
And the response last night, for example, for Condi Rice, who's probably the only popular member of the second Bush administration here, was really a kind of a yearning for, like, gosh. And, when they kept saying last night, we can do better, I kept thinking at some level a lot of these delegates think they can do better than Mitt Romney. And it's really his challenge tonight to persuade them that he's their leader and he can take them to victory.
Is that remarkable for a convention, or is it not, in your experience, that you'd have to come in and convincing even that party, your own party, that you're the leader? They're all here to nominate Mitt Romney.
Yes, of course, and they'll all vote for him with varying degrees of enthusiasm, but they'll vote for him. I mean, I guess it's kind of an anomalous situation in the modern era, although 4 years ago, let's remember that Sarah Palin excited a lot more enthusiasm in St. Paul than John McCain did. But in L.A., I think, despite, some of the problems that Al Gore had, the party was very much behind him, and Bill Clinton passed the torch, and there was a lot of enthusiasm for him, and Bill Bradley's challenge had faded into the past. I think it's much more common to have a big, enthusiastic, unified convention than to have one that's got a little bit subdued note that this one does.
Now, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I know this is Mitt Romney's night, but since you know a little bit about Bill Clinton, I wanted to get your take on this while you're here. He's going to be speaking, obviously, a week from now in Charlotte. What kind of message does that send to the country that the current president, who ran against, of course, his wife, and in many ways was running against the Clinton era, is now bringing him up on stage to help really save his presidency?
I think it means that the Obama campaign has reluctantly acknowledged that Bill Clinton remains the best spokesman for kind of gut-level democratic core values, and he is the best at communicating common-sense approach to the economy that can be heard by people in Harvard Square and Hope, Arkansas, and appreciated in both places, and you just can't deny that. Remember the final rally he had in Florida for President Obama toward the end of the 2000 campaign. I was just overwhelmingly. And I'll never forget in Boston in 2004, the minute President Clinton came out on the stage, the whole arena exploded, and you certainly felt that people there wish they could have run him for a third term instead of John Kerry.
Right. Well, that was a different situation than 4 years later. Clearly, President Obama was the star of the party by then. You wonder if Bill Clinton has in a lot of ways eclipsed that. It's an amazing comeback story from the comeback kid.
Well, as they used to say of Teddy Roosevelt, President Clinton wishes he could be the bride at every wedding and the corpse at every funeral. And it's wonderful. It's got to be sweet victory for him. I won't say revenge, but it's got to be a sweet kind of vindication that President Obama has called on him to, bail his chestnuts out of the fire. And I think he'll, I'm sure he'll just get an explosive reaction. You just know that he will.
Indeed. All right, Todd Purdom of Vanity Fair, Princeton graduate. I should note, just for the record, just because we like
yes,
to put
because
these
you can.
things
We have to
on the
limit it
record.
down one way or the
Yeah,
other.
That's exactly right. Thank you so much
Thank
for being
you guys
here.
very
All
much.
right.
Good luck.
Todd.
Our Dan Kleffler has been looking at political evolutions. Take a look at this little package he prepared for us.
If you pop the balloons, strike the sets, and tell the Black Eyed Peas to get it started somewhere else, you might be left with a political convention that looks something like this. Chicago, 1860, the site of the second nominating convention for the Republicans, where Abraham Lincoln threw his smokestack hat into the presidential ring with this letter accepting the nomination. But it was only after some fiery floor debates and a couple rounds of votes that delegates decided then and there who was the best fit for the ticket. Lincoln didn't swagger to Chicagoland knowing he had the nomination in the bag. In fact, like all candidates until 1932, Lincoln didn't attend the convention at all.
Polls are now open, and the first ballot is cast.
Now, candidates tally up those delegates along the primary trail.
Thanks for coming, sir.
Delegates can still change their mind at the conventions, but candidates are usually confident enough to print out the bumper stickers ahead of time.
And we stand today on the edge of a new frontier.
Convention time isn't just about picking the guy with the best hair. It's also a chance for parties to agree on a platform.
The convention will be in order.
From civil rights to abortion to foreign policy, some of the most contentious political issues have been debated on the convention floor and have driven the American people to demonstrate. While important work is getting done at the conventions,
I pledge myself to a New Deal.
Read my lips. No new tax
promises.
Over the years, delegates have shown that they know how to let their hair down. In 1924, John Philip Sousa rocked Republicans in Cleveland for the first convention ever broadcast on radio. The conventions made their way to television in 1940. Now, the convention lineup has become a party playlist with everyone from Kanye West to the Beach Boys. And with a show like that, the whole world has a front row seat to the action, even when the action misses its mark.
Keep coming, balloons, more balloons, bring them, balloons, balloons, balloons. Want balloons, tons of them, bring them down. What the f*** are you guys doing up there?
When 1.8 million tweets can be generated in 6 minutes, it's hard to imagine Abe Lincoln walking miles to receive a telegraph informing him he was a presidential candidate.
Conventions have come a long way in the last 150 years. From the Pony Express to live streaming, who knows what the future will hold? Will the convention of 2052 be held on Mars? At this point, maybe we should settle for balloons hitting their cue. Balloons hitting their cue. Balloons hitting their cue. Balloons hitting their... Dan Kleffler, ABC News.
We'll be there for the 2052 convention, certainly on that Mars colony. All right, Cecilia Vega, ABC Cecilia Vega, we've been sending you into, as we said, the wilderness of the outdoor world and the indoor world, the trenches of journalism, and you've been talking to delegates. What have you been finding?
Well, I'm wondering how many of them are here for Mitt Romney and how many of them are here for this big mystery guest tonight.
The mystery guest.
Kind of debatable.
There's a big question mark hanging over the arena. But can we whistle it? I don't know if I can really whistle it, but this
is a tease. We're not going to reveal it yet.
Okay, of course not. We wouldn't dare reveal it because it's not the time yet.
It's never been out there before. So this is, you guys know this. People have been talking about this probably since Monday. It kind of leaked out a little bit when we got to see the lineup for the convention. There was this mysterious hole in the lineup between Taylor Hicks, between Taylor Swift and Marco Rubio. It was kind of said mystery. It literally said mystery guest, and the campaign would not comment on it. So all reporters, right, are going, who is this? And the speculation was wild.
Right.
Speculation among the delegates. We talked to a bunch of them. Some of the guesses were completely out there. Take a listen. We've got some good sound. Who's it going to be?
Well, I don't know, but I know who I'd like it to be.
Okay, who's your best pick, mystery guest?
Without a doubt, Tim Tebow. That'd be my #1 pick to see on the stage.
Tebow.
You like Tebow's your guy?
Oh, I like Tebow for what he stands for. He's a real American success story.
Could be perfect. Well, I would love to see a good celebrity or a good, like Spielberg, somebody in the movie industry.
My husband, Dwayne Hill. He would love to be president for a year.
I'm hoping that it's Clint Eastwood because the last time I checked, Clint Eastwood was on the Soul Patrol.
Not bad.
Okay, that was American Idol winner Taylor Hicks, right? You saw Michelle Bachmann in there. Sarah Palin was a big guest. Tim Tebow, everybody had their money on Tim Tebow, but the biggest hint came today for people who happened to be on the convention floor listening to sound checks. Take a listen.
That wouldn't have helped me.
Oh, come on.
I don't know. I don't know.
Can I just say, I've been working with a producer all week, Andy Feist. That is his ringtone on his cell phone.
Oh, my God. Brilliant.
It threw you off. It was meant to be.
So if you don't know at home who that was, you've got to know. Everybody's got to know this. Clint Eastwood from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It is official, sort of official. Campaign is still not confirming. This is the funny thing. Campaign is still not confirming. It's been everywhere. It's all over Twitter. It's online. Clint Eastwood is the big mystery guest. It's kind of a funny one, though, right? I mean, it's kind of a love-hate thing with Republicans.
Well, no, he's a former mayor, a Republican mayor.
Former mayor. But he made people very upset earlier this year during the Super Bowl ad where he came out into a Super Bowl ad for Chrysler, right? It was Chrysler received a bailout. A lot of people interpreted that to mean that he might be out there campaigning for Obama. Not the case.
This is the Halftime in America ad. The best line, I think, it's got to say, this is halftime in the Obama presidency.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We're done. Or not.
Well,
no,
see, when it's halftime, you don't want to say that. You have to say
the opposite. No, you want to go like
That's the opposite. That's the opposite.
Good thing we're not talking about
sports. That doesn't work. Wow.
I know. And you know a little something about that.
All right, Cecilia Vega.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. I don't think that should be the line. You know, a little known fact about Clint Eastwood, Amy, is that back in 1988, George H.W. Bush actually briefly considered putting him on the presidential ticket. Back when they were down against Michael Dukakis, there was talk. James Baker confirmed it. There was talk of putting him on the vice presidential ticket. We never would have heard of Dan Quayle on the national stage had that happened.
And we probably never would have heard of President Bush either. So that was probably a good thing to do that. Not saying that it's not. It is pretty remarkable.
But I do think I'd be surprised if he didn't at least reference in some way that old ad. You know, because the comeback story that he took a lot of heat. Karl Rove at the time even said that was basically an ad for the Obama campaign. He was so upset over hearing it.
Right. And although I think when I saw that ad, I was at that moment when I realized this is exactly what political candidates need to incorporate in their own ads, which is a sense of optimism and hope that things were bad, but we're going to bring them back. That is something that Mitt Romney's trying to grab onto. Democrats, of course, spending a whole lot of time trying to turn him into basically the capitalist Cruella de Vil.
Right.
And that's where maybe Clint Eastwood can help with that. All right, well, joining us, we're very excited to have with us Minority Leader of the Senate, Mitch McConnell. How are you?
Good to see you.
It's very good to see you. Okay, so we have to ask you, since you I don't know if you're a big Clint Eastwood fan, but is there a favorite Clint Eastwood movie of yours?
Gosh, you know, it's hard to think of one.
Go through it all. I know, I threw it at you.
I actually was with him at a dinner in Los Angeles just a couple of weeks ago, so I knew he was supporting Romney. On your movie question, good grief, I liked so many of them. It's hard to pick.
I know, I threw it in there.
We'll let you come back to it. That's okay. But what is the message from Mitt Romney tonight? Obviously, you're excited to support him. This is a lot of excitement in the room tonight. But you hear the same talk among Republicans as everyone else does. Yeah, we don't really know him that well yet. What does Mitt Romney have to do?
Yeah, I think the case against another 4 years of Obama has been made pretty well through the Republican primaries and looking at the poll data and looking at how people feel about the first 4 years. So the question is, we need biography and we need autobiography and we need what is the mission ahead. And I think we learned a lot about Mitt Romney from his wife. We learned something about him and about Paul Ryan and Paul Ryan's speech last night. There may be some autobiography in the speech tonight, but what I anticipate, not having looked at it yet, is that he begins to lay out the way forward, how we would do things differently from how they've been done in the last 4 years, because the ultimate sale involves three things: making a case against rehiring the current guy, making sure everybody's comfortable with the guy in the White House, and number three, what would you do differently from the people you seek to replace?
You're someone who knows a little bit about campaigning. In fact, you are a very astute political practitioner and observer. When you watch what Democrats have done, though, they've spent all summer really turning him into a caricature. They've obviously pushed his negatives very high. His favorables are very low. Can he get elected president with favorable ratings at 40%?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're going to stay at 40%, but look at the published polls in the last few days. A dead even race after $100 million of attack ads over the last couple of months. Yeah, I mean, I think they've driven his unfavorable up, and it's important for us to deal with that, and I think the convention is part of the way you do that. You also do it with paid advertising. But, look, they've got no alternative. You know, they've got a president with a record no one likes. They like him personally, they're disappointed in him, but they don't like what he's done. The only way they can win this thing is to run a campaign, basically, that could be best described as "it's not my fault."
Right.
You know, it was the tsunami in Japan. It was the debt crisis in Europe. It's rich people, Wall Street, Republicans, George Bush. Mitt Romney is Gordon Gekko. I mean, you get the drift. That's the only path to victory for them. And they decided to play that card really hard early.
Right. Well, we're going to go right now to check out who's on the podium right now.
Newt Gingrich.
It is Speaker Newt Gingrich and his wife, Felicity Gingrich.
And our thanks to Senator McConnell for joining us here. We've got you to sign the iPad, of course. You didn't draw Kentucky like Diane Sawyer, but we'll let you off the hook once again. Thank you, Senator.
Good to see you.
Thank you very much, Senator.
See you later.
Thank you. Thank you for that warm welcome. What a wonderful tribute to President Reagan and the spirit of the American people.
It's fantastic to see so many friends here. Friends from decades of service to the party, service in public life, and those who have helped us over the past few years. And we are delighted that tonight we come together to once again renew the American spirit and put real leadership back in the White House this November.
The election of Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan will decisively move America to a better future. Remembering President Reagan reminds us that the choices we make matter, and this year is as important as the choice we made in 1980.
Over 3 decades have passed since Ronald Reagan was first elected to the White House. Yet the impact of his leadership is still evident today. While in office, President Reagan had 3 major goals: to restore the economy, to revive the American spirit, and to defeat totalitarianism, spreading democracy throughout the world.
By remaining true to his convictions, through his belief in the American people, and with tremendous optimism, President Reagan achieved these goals.
It's striking how President Carter and President Obama both took our nation down a path that in 4 years weakened America's confidence in itself and our hope for a better future.
Both weakened the respect for America abroad. Both increased government programs filled with waste and inefficiency that failed to produce results. Both made promises they couldn't keep, and as a consequence of ineffective policies, both were unable to revive our economy and create jobs.
For example, both crippled American energy production when there were better ways to develop and use our abundant energy resources. The Romney Plan for North American energy independence is exactly the kind of bold, visionary leadership Reagan believed in, and it is what we need now.
The Reagan presidency also teaches us that there is a better way to put Americans back to work, create millions of jobs, and help every American achieve success. The Reagan program of tax cuts, regulatory reform, and spending controls worked.
Reagan's belief in small business owners and entrepreneurs is a remarkable contrast with Obama's class warfare rhetoric, massive deficits, and a passion for taxing those who create jobs. The Romney Plan for a stronger middle class has deep roots in Ronald Reagan's approach.
Reagan's commitment to reform welfare and to create a work requirement was a major achievement when he was governor of California. His pioneering work led to the historic welfare reform bill Congress and the President passed 30 years later. This bipartisan legislation reduced the size of government, made our country more competitive, and put millions of Americans back to work.
Tragically, President Obama gutted this achievement, and like Jimmy Carter, over 4 years, he produced little effective legislation that brought the two parties together in the interest of the nation. Obama's waiving of the work requirements and welfare reform is just one example of his direct repudiation of President Reagan's values. Obama's proud of what he's done and of his politically motivated partisanship, but he should be ashamed for putting politics before people.
Governor Romney will return America to work and to the principles that are at the core of President Reagan's legacy. This year, the American people will once again have an important choice to make.
Now, each of us must commit ourselves, in the tradition of Ronald Reagan, to come together. President Reagan said, "There is no substitute for victory." And this November, we cannot settle for anything less. This is the most critical election of our lifetime. Each of us must do our part now to ensure that America remains, in the tradition of President Reagan, a land of freedom, hope, and opportunity. Thank you, and God bless you, and God bless America.
Going tag team here at the Republican convention. Newt, you a big buzz over here. We're gonna go right down to the floor of this convention right now with our own Jonathan Carl. John, what are you hearing? What are you picking up there among the masses of delegates? They got here early today.
I got to tell you, first, a moment on Newt Gingrich, Rick. First of all, you saw that standing ovation for him. I mean, you know, we covered that Gingrich campaign. We saw there were two different times where he had emerged as the front runner. Of course, one time famously telling Jake Tapper that I'm going to be the nominee. There's no doubt about that. And then as he started to fade and fade so fast, he told us over and over again there was going to be a brokered convention. There was going to be a convention fight for the nomination, and he's the guy that ran a whip operation. He was going to fight and win it on the convention floor. And here he is. Fast forward, we're here in August, and up on the stage, getting a standing ovation, and very much, of course, touting Ronald Reagan, but also Mitt Romney. As for tonight, Rick, you know, this is the big night for Romney to finally make the case. If you talk to the campaign, they believe there'll be 40 million people watching tonight. This is their best opportunity to make the case for Mitt Romney. They believe they've already made the case against Barack Obama. Now they need to make the case for Mitt Romney, and that's what tonight's all about.
John, I want to talk about Newt Gingrich for a moment. I mean, obviously, he was the one who started two big fights, intra-party fights. The first was taking on Paul Ryan's budget plan, calling it right-wing social engineering, and then saying, of course, he was misquoted. And then, of course, he went after, or the super PAC that was affiliated with him went after the Bain Capital story. So how do you go from that up to the convention and speak? How does that work exactly?
It's an amazing feat, and we remember I was with Gingrich in Florida as things started to go south for him here. It was the day after the famous moon speech where he promised to have a moon colony, and he gave a speech at Mount Dora, Florida. It was called the Occupy Mount Dora speech by those that were watching, where he invoked Swiss bank accounts, he invoked Cayman Islands funds, and just went after Mitt Romney in almost exactly the same language that you hear Democrats now going after him. But I've asked Gingrich about this many times, how he could come back on board, and the way he explains it was that Romney threw the kitchen sink at him, he threw the kitchen sink at Romney. Romney's kitchen sink was bigger than his, and you come together after, because overall the thing that really matters in the minds of conservatives is, for all their problems they may have had with Mitt Romney during the primaries, they want to defeat Barack Obama. He's now the guy, their only chance of doing it. And certainly for Newt Gingrich, he truly at this point seems to be on board despite all those things we heard during the primaries.
And what has happened with the Gingrich-Ryan relationship? That was tense at times. I remember Paul Ryan swinging back a little bit and saying, with friends like these. But have they made any progress? Is there any more fallout from the fact that Newt Gingrich totally denounced the Ryan budget a couple of months ago?
Yeah, it was a little more than a couple of months ago. It was a while back. It was earlier on in the primaries, and that phrase "right-wing social engineering" is a hard one to take out of context. It was clearly a shot at the Ryan budget, and if you talk to Newt Gingrich now, though, he's Paul Ryan's biggest booster. I don't think that Ryan spends a lot of time reaching out to Gingrich for advice or talking to him much, but if you talk to Gingrich now about Paul Ryan, Ryan. He is 100% on board, and in fact, we'll tell you what a brilliant pick it was.
Well, and Newt Gingrich knows a little something about demagoguing. Obviously, the work that Newt Gingrich did on Medicare when he was Speaker was used against him and
That's
used
right.
against his party. They lost a lot of seats that next year, was right after the Republican Revolution. So
all right,
it's quite
ABC's John Coral, our man on the floor, keeping it real for us among the delegates. Bring back a funny hat next time, John. I am still disappointed that
you got it,
you
man.
haven't
I'm with
delivered
you.
on that
Maybe a
promise
cheese
yet.
head.
All right. Cheese
All right,
head,
all right.
you name it. I want headgear. I mean, that's
I know
what
we don't have
conventions
anything
are
there.
about,
I know.
right? We are pleased now to join ABC's Diane Sawyer.
Hello.
Hello, Diane.
Did you
Hello,
see our
Diane.
great?
I did. I didn't see
our
how
gear.
this works. Show me.
So it's a mitt. Don't mess with the mitt.
Now, Michigan.
Get it? Michigan is often as a mitt.
Michigan thinks it looks like a mitt. It doesn't look like a mitt there so much.
Well, you got to take out the Upper Peninsula.
Oh, I see.
And see.
Okay.
But it's that UP that.
I
gets
just
in the
want
way.
to. Did anybody have to draw Michigan? Since you made me draw
Yes, you know,
Kentucky.
Matthew Dowd did a pretty good job.
He
This
did?
is
Good.
tough right here.
That is very tough.
So you got to sit down with the new vice presidential nominee
This
this afternoon.
I did.
So what'd you think?
Well, you know, he came by. He is so pumped. He is so excited. He's so convinced that his running mate is the man to get this done. It was very funny, though. You know, when he walked in, I stood there and I looked at him like this and I said, I don't know why you understand. You think our music, the music of my generation, is elevator music. And he looked sort of shocked for a second. And I said, because I believe the Eagles are a favorite of Mitt Romney. So I said, Hotel California is not elevator music.
Well, he did talk about AC/DC and Led Zeppelin.
He did with us too.
Not exactly younger music, but it is for this key demographic that he represents, and he thinks it can matter.
And what are they? You'll correct me, but it's like 35% they're polling right now in that generation.
And voters under 30, that's right.
And so I asked him about that. I also, of course, asked him about the nominee coming up tonight.
About talking about very big specific cuts, because I read in Time magazine that the governor would achieve in this room tonight.
I hope people get to meet the kind of leader I know. We need someone who is going to give us honest leadership, courageous leadership, a man of achievement and integrity, a man you enjoy listening to because he's telling you the truth. That's the guy I know, and that's what I think Americans are going to meet tonight.
Does he ever seem passionate about the man at the top of the ticket?
He does, but also I was trying to push him a little bit when they're going to get specific about cuts, because in Time magazine, Mitt Romney had said that he thinks the Democrats will just use it as fodder if they get too specific. I didn't get a whole lot further with him, but we did talk about the generation to come, and again, he's just that front edge of a new generation.
Do you feel coming out of this convention that younger voters under 30, I think 35% now is the Republican polling. Do you think it's going to change?
I do, because I see younger people are more disaffected. You got to remember, half of all college graduates today are either unemployed or are not working in the field in which they studied. So there's a little disillusionment there, I think. And what we're offering them is a positive solution, specific reforms to get this economy growing so we can turn opportunity back on.
Do you get the sense that he understands or believes that he is the voice of this generation and could be the next transformative leader, right? Like, he's next in line and his generation is next in line to be sitting on that stage in their own right.
I think he certainly understands that he's not going to let Barack Obama continue to be the voice of that generation. And however they're polling right now, however they marshal or don't marshal the organization this time around, he's making a play for it. He's making a big run for it.
He is indeed. Diane Sawyer, our pleasure to have you in the booth. You'll be anchoring our coverage tonight from 10 to 11 on the ABC Broadcast Network. We thank you so much for being here. And you know, you still have the best Kentucky by far. I don't think anyone... We asked Mitch McConnell to do it, and he
I see it
out.
here. Look at this.
Out. He just signed his name.
I know.
It's
okay, so far, I'm still got my record.
That's exactly right. A failure of leadership by Senator McConnell. But thank you, Diane.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Yeah, look, this is so many ways Paul Ryan's convention so far. It is remarkable, the energy for him.
Well, and think about that class of 2010 and so many of the people that we're talking about that may be coming in this next class of 2012. These are people under 50. These are 40, 45-year-olds. But of course, when we talk about younger voters, and we can't talk about ourselves in that demographic anymore.
Oh, no.
This is the Gen X generation. These are the kids who grew up in the 80s. The ones that were voting for Barack Obama were the kids that were born in the 90s.
Right.
So there is still something of a difference, those millennial generation. And someone else who knows a little something about presidential politics, George Stephanopoulos, joining with us. Hello.
I'm on the very, very, very tail end of Gen X. I'm on that cusp.
And so who do you identify with?
Generationally?
Music-wise, generationally, yeah.
Oh, it's so embarrassing for me to admit.
No, it's not more than this.
I'm a little more Mitt Romney than Paul Ryan and Barack Obama.
A little more. Oh, how about that? Well, we've got Jeb Bush coming to the stage right now. A big ovation. We're going to listen to that for a minute and hope that George can hang with us. Jeb Bush, the former governor of Florida.
Florida. Bienvenidos a nuestra querida Florida. Thank you. Before I begin my remarks, I have something personal I'd like to share with you. I've been so blessed to be part of a family that has committed its life to public service. My granddad, my grandfather, and my father have been incredible role models for me and served our country honorably. And my brother, well, I love my brother. He is a man of integrity, courage, and honor. And during incredibly challenging times, he kept us safe. So, Mr. President, it is time to stop blaming your predecessor for your failed economic policies. You were dealt a tough hand. You were dealt a tough hand, but your policies have not worked. In the 4th year of your presidency, a real leader would accept responsibility for his actions, and you haven't done it. Now that I've gotten that off my chest, let's talk a little bit about our kids and education. This election is about the future of this nation. We can shape that future with what we do here, with what we do on November 6th. We can restore America's greatness. That starts with a strong economy, a smart energy policy, lower deficits, and a president who puts America's workers and job creators first. But to have a great future, a secure future, a future that is equal to our potential.
Okay, you can watch the entirety of Jeb Bush's speech here on abcnews.com. We're running this. Of course, you can go on your iPad and watch it as well. George, you know, Jeb Bush has been pretty open about his frustration with the Republican Party and how they're not appealing to a very important demographic, which is Latino voters. Very blunt. What can Mitt Romney do between now and Election Day? Or is it really just too late?
You know, he's obviously going to push the economic message. We know that. I thought Jorge Ramos was very interesting on this last night on our primetime broadcast when he said, basically, do nothing. Anything you say can and will be used against you. That was my phrase, not his. But that was basically his message, saying, you know, if you look at the Republican platform, you know, on immigration, for example, and the call for self-deportation, which was a Mitt Romney policy during the primaries, it's a killer in the Latino community. And it's very difficult for Mitt Romney to repudiate that. He's not going to, I don't think, at this point. And every minute he spends talking about it is minutes spent not talking about the economy. He's just got to throw out a very strong economic message and hope, along with, you know, a certain segment of the Latino community can be drawn in by a conservative cultural message as well on issues like faith and family. And I think that's the best he can do. at this point. Anytime he's talking about immigration, I think is a moment lost.
George, we just heard Governor Bush defend his brother, talking about this guy who's not
He
here.
loves his brother. He did say that.
We've heard nothing of George W. Bush throughout
We saw that video last night, a little bit of that.
The video, yes, with Condi Rice's speech, some glancing references. But Jeb Bush out there, he's received pretty well.
Well, he got a standing ovation when he said basically, "Stop blaming my brother for your economic failure."
Right.
Now, don't hold your breath, Jeb Bush.
you don't think Obama's going to take the advice on that?
I don't think he's going to take. And you've seen that's actually one of the messages of this whole convention is trying to preempt that line of attack, making it seem like Obama's being something of a wimp by blaming things on President Bush. It's a time-honored political tactic. How long did Republicans run against Jimmy Carter?
Right.
And
some still are.
Exactly. And, the facts tend to support, at least on the debt and deficit, the Democrats on this score. The bulk of our deficit problem that we have right now was created by the tax cuts in 2001, the wars, which had bipartisan support for the most part. So you're not going to see any change from the Democrats on that score.
Talk to us a little bit about the so-called convention bounce. A lot of folks are going to be talking as soon as he leaves the floor whether or not he's going to bump up in the polls. What's your expectation?
I assume he's going to bump up maybe a little bit, but we've been talking about this all year long. We may be in a post-convention bounce era. First of all, the conventions are happening later than they did in the past. I think back to campaign of 1992 when Clinton had that massive 17-point turnaround in a few days during the convention. It was much earlier. Ross Perot got out of the race at the time. You're not going to see something like that here. We've also had a unusually ossified political environment this year. The polls just don't move. They haven't moved since Mitt Romney won the nomination. Hard to expect they'll move much out of a 5 or 6 point range, and that's more or less in the margin of error. And on top of it, the Democratic convention is, just a few days from now. So what I'm looking at, I'm sure you guys are doing the same thing. I want to see what a poll looks like September 15th. After both conventions a week, see if it levels out, and if we go back to the level we've seen all year long, or if we see a significant shift.
Finally, George, Mitt Romney tonight, we were saying this earlier, you don't give bad convention speeches, really, because
it's hard to.
Yeah, you've got the speech, you've got the teleprompter, you write it so far in advance. So, Mitt Romney, great or good tonight? What do you think?
From the excerpts, it's good. Solid. Yeah. Almost exactly what you would expect.
Very Mitt Romney.
Very Mitt Romney. I think the difference between great and good is whether Mitt Romney surprises us tonight, tells us something we really don't know, or shows us a part of himself that we've never really considered before. And it can't just be in his demeanor. It doesn't necessarily have to be a brand new fact, but that's, I think, going to be the real test for him. It's very hard to do. But I think that is something he's almost has to do, shake people's vision of him just a little bit. Now, as you guys know, it's been part of the theology of this campaign that they don't really necessarily have to do that. They just think if he's just up there and acceptable, things are going to come his way at the end, and that's a pretty big gamble.
And, of course, surprises can also backfire. There was the Al Gore Tipper Gore kiss that was supposed to show him as a guy who
that didn't backfire.
You didn't think it backfired?
It worked.
No,
it worked. You think that people?
There is so much revisionist history on the Al Gore convention.
I thought that wasn't. I thought that worked.
Okay. I thought it came across as
you want a surprise it didn't work? Walter Mondale, 1984. He's not going to tell you he's going to raise taxes. I will.
I will.
Yeah.
That was a surprise.
And that didn't work.
So let me wager that Mitt Romney isn't going to say my taxes will get higher when I am president. Okay, I think they've all learned their lesson.
I think that's a safe
on that one. George Stephanopoulos, thank you for joining us. We'll be back on the broadcast network at 10 p.m. Eastern tonight for an hour of primetime coverage.
That's right. We will. And as you know, we can watch it at multiple screens. You can keep this open and watch it on your iPad. You have your multiple screens here at abcnews.com, and of course the broadcast.
Hashtag is 2012 GOP. We're getting lots of great feedback about this. I'm not getting Stuff Sam Donaldson Says, the Twitter handle, trending yet, but if I get nothing else done for these 2 weeks of convention coverage, it shall be that, because I feel like that is a larger priority than anything else. I'm a little bit fascinated by the Bush factor in this. We saw Condi Rice last night, really the only legacy of the Bush years to speak, but Jeb Bush found it necessary, as he told Diane Sawyer last night that he would, to go out there and defend his brother's legacy. You don't hear a lot of people pining for the Bush days back in this crowd, but the guy is still very popular among Republicans.
Yeah, and I think that just in general, look, Jeb Bush has such incredible goodwill, both among the people in this crowd, but I think just overall that among Republicans, this idea that this is a guy that they really wanted to see run for president, and but for his last name, he's a guy that probably would have been in the mix in 2012. Speaking of which, there is a guy who was part of the mix in the 2012 race
for about 10 minutes.
2011, you were.
Yeah, that was big. It was a big year.
Yeah, right.
Of course,
right.
Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty, who is signing in on our guest book with his advice. Mitt will rock tonight, Tim P. AC/DC rock or
written kind of like Fred Flintstone.
Well,
I mean, look at that.
It's tough. All right, so does he need to have an AC/DC kind of rock out night, or you think that?
You know, if you think of the titles of AC/DC songs, you know, Hell's Bells, Back to Black, You Shook Me All Night Long, those probably don't summarize what we're.
No, you shook me on.
Well, that might. But you think about it. Maybe what we're looking for tonight is something not quite AC/DC, but something that is going to say to the country, what we have isn't working, and I've got a better plan. I think that's what you're going to see. And coming from somebody who's backing it up with a lifetime of success and a record of actually getting things done, which we don't see from Barack Obama.
I should pause to recognize that Tim Pawlenty just dropped some serious AC/DC knowledge on us right here. That was quite impressive. We did not forewarn him that there were any musical questions as part of the lineup. So you delivered some red meat last night, some good little zingers delivering against the president. One of our previous guests, Mitch McConnell, said, look, I think the case against Barack Obama has been fairly well made. Everyone in this room obviously knows that. Time to turn it on for the case for Mitt Romney. How does he get that done tonight?
Well, I think a number of ways. If you look at these undecided or switchable voters, the 5 to 10% of the electorate who hasn't made up their mind and still reachable, the number one issue for them still is the economy. And that's right in Mitt Romney's wheelhouse. That's right in his sweet spot, and he's got an advantage on that issue. So I think you're going to see him highlight briefly, of course, Barack Obama's failure in that regard, but what he can do and has done to get this economy moving again in his ideas. And he's got the credibility to do it. And then secondly, I think you're going to see a movement towards making sure people understand it's not all just in the head, it's also in the heart and in the gut. And I think you'll see some of that from him tonight as he talks about his relationship with his father and the importance of his family and some of the personal aspects of Mitt Romney's life.
It seems though that it's more than just seeing the personal side of his life. It's this idea that some voters have that he can't really connect with them, that he doesn't necessarily understand their life. You're the guy who coined the term Sam's Club Republicans, these voters who fiscally are conservative, but they're not in the 1% of the economic class. How does he talk to those Walmart moms who are saying right now, I just don't know that he can understand what I go through day to day just to make it?
Well, I think what they understand is it's hard to pay the bill at Walmart or Costco or Kmart if you don't have a job and don't have money. And so as they look to their options here and they see themselves or their loved ones facing either job loss or economic insecurity, they want to know, am I going to have a job? And Mitt Romney is somebody who, by the way, didn't inherit his money. If you listen to Mitt carefully, he waived his inheritance, and the money he has, he made. In America, we celebrate success, and we celebrate people making money, and that's what he's done, and he's been incredibly generous with it once he's made it. But I think to the so-called Sam's Club Republicans, the message is which of these candidates is going to be more likely to make it, you continue to have or get a good-paying job? And the answer to that, as we've seen over the last 4 years, isn't Barack Obama, and I think they're taking a good look for good reason at Mitt Romney.
Help us unlock the keys to the other half of the ticket. Paul Ryan, he's from the Midwest, as you are, blue collar upbringing, as you have. What is there something in the way that he can connect with voters, the way that he relates to voters, his personal story? What is it that you think will work with these white working class voters that are the key demographic this year?
Well, of course, that's true, but it's also true if you look at Latinos and Hispanic voters, their main issue isn't immigration. Their main issue is just like everybody else is, am I going to have a job? Can I pay for my health care? Can I get my kids to college? Can I put gas in the car? Can I pay the grocery bill? So that message works across different voter groups. And secondly, Paul Ryan brings to the table, first of all, an upper Midwestern background, an upper Midwestern perspective. A lot of these swing states are in that region. And, of course, his personal story and his personal style is one that I think connects with people not just in the head but in the gut. Paul's got more than one gear. He can do the deep policy wonk stuff if you need to, but he can also bring that speak from the heart, speak from the gut. You saw that last night. By the way, my headphone feedback aren't coming through, so I can't hear, but maybe somebody can fix that for me.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'll just get very close to you. I just want to get back to this idea of connecting with those voters we've been talking about, which is, does he need to go out there and say, I feel your pain, or does he need to go out there and say, I know how to fix this?
I think it doesn't work if people try to fake stuff, if they try to manufacture something. So I think the worst thing that Mitt Romney could do, frankly, would be to listen to this chatter and try to go out and be something he isn't. What he should do is go out and be himself, be Mitt Romney. And Mitt Romney, when people get to know him, as I have and others have, is a kind, generous, funny, smart, capable, gracious man. He's a remarkable leader, as you've seen as a governor, as a businessman, as a turnaround success with the Olympics. But if you also look at his personal life, he's not one of these politicians that just flaps his jaw and talks about certain values. He actually lives them. He's a wonderful family man. He's a loving husband. He's terrific with his kids and his grandkids. He's generous with his church. He's generous with charities. And he's a fun-loving, kind, gracious man. And so don't go out and try to force that.
Right.
Just be yourself, and it'll come through over time. That's the good news, by the way, about longer American elections, unlike some of the other elections around the world that are a month long. You know, you can dupe people for a month, but you can't dupe people for 2 years. And that's why the real candidates come out over the course of this long, grueling process, and that's why I'm very optimistic about Mitt Romney's chances.
I just wanted to ask you, finally, I know you've done the iPad, you signed in and everything, appreciate that. Do you get a good hotel room as being one of the shortlisters who didn't get it? Do they at least let you like stay in a suite? What do you get?
Well, actually, I stayed over in St. Petersburg Beach, and I had to swim in through the channel to get here.
Past those political sharks.
No,
I'm
staying right across the street at the Romney's Hotel.
Okay, well, that's good. I'm glad you got at least that.
And a gift basket. Did you get one of those when you checked in?
How can you not?
All right, good.
Awesome.
Tim Pawlenty, former governor of Minnesota. Really appreciate you being with us.
Happy to do it.
Thank you so much for doing it.
All right, we're going to go down now to the convention floor where ABC's Cokie Roberts is standing by. Cokie, what are you seeing out there tonight among the delegates? Seems like a pretty decent, energized crowd.
It is a good-sized crowd, but you know, Rick and the conversation you were just having with Governor Pawlenty really does highlight some challenges that Mitt Romney has beyond this crowd, which is going to be very happy to see him and very enthusiastic to see him. In looking at the comparisons of the vote that Obama got in 2008, and looking at those same groups in the population that you were just talking about with Governor Pawlenty, in the average of ABC polls in 2012, you see a real pattern here, which is that Midwestern voters have gone off of Barack Obama. Those with less than a high school education have gone off of him. Catholics have gone off of him. Married people have gone off of him. Also, unmarried people have too, for that matter. But those people have not gone to Mitt Romney. So that Romney is still getting the same percentages among those groups in the population as John McCain got, even though Obama is getting lower percentages among each of those groups. So really one of his challenges here tonight is to get to those voters you were just talking about. To convince them that now that they have at least temporarily abandoned Barack Obama, that they need to come to Mitt Romney, and they haven't yet made that choice. That's his challenge tonight.
Cokie, I want to talk to you a little about something we've been bringing up throughout the course of this convention, and that's the energy level here, and the fact that this may be an anti-Obama crowd. It still doesn't feel yet like a crowd that is enthusiastic for Mitt Romney. Can you tell us, first of all, if you're feeling the same thing? And if so, what does this tell us about what the next 68 days are going to look like for Mitt Romney and for his campaign?
I actually don't think that it's unenthusiastic about Mitt Romney. I think that this crowd is ready to be enthusiastic about anything Republican, that they are just eager to celebrate the Republican Party and their candidates wives and children, and that they will go out from here even more enthusiastic. You know, today I've been in this hall a lot of the day and watched this stage get built, and it's been quite an operation. making the stage much bigger than it has been the last few nights, and clearly and also going down into the crowd, which was both going to be, I assume, both physical and symbolic of Romney connecting to the people. But clearly what's going to happen is his entire family is going to come up on this stage. That's a whole lot of people, and they are very attractive people. And then, of course, all the politicians will come up, as they always do it at the end of a convention when the balloons fall. But once that Romney family gets up there, I don't think you're going to see in this crowd any iota of a lack of enthusiasm. I think that it's going to be a very energized crowd going out of here. The question for Romney isn't here. The question is out there, and how much he can convince people to like him, to want to have him in their houses for the next 4 years or on their iPhones, and to give them some idea of what he will do beyond what he will not have Obama do.
All right, ABC's Cokie Roberts. We should mention, off to Cokie's left, it is a very rare camera sighting from ABC's Washington Bureau Chief, Robin Sproul. Cokie, please tell Robin that we just said her name on air, because I know she won't like it. Thank you, Cokie.
she can hear you. She was thrilled.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Thanks so much.
Pretending not to hear us, but I like seeing her get on camera, even though she doesn't really like it very much. Well, as you know, many of you know, we do have a partnership we're really excited about. It's brand new. It's with Univision. And Mariana is with us once again. So glad to see you. This is the third night in a row.
So glad to be here.
So glad to be here. I would love just to get your reflections now that we're in the final night here. We're coming right up on Mitt Romney's speech. Your sense from being here for 3 days in terms of how this Republican Party is going to go moving forward for the next, I guess it's 68 days, in addressing the gap that they have with Latino voters.
I mean, I think they've definitely made an effort, especially in terms of the speakers. The speakers have just been spectacular. Susana Martinez has really, impressed the Latino community. But I think that they need to be more specific, especially in terms of the immigration issue. Speaking a little Spanish, talking about the fact that we're all a nation, that we're all immigrants, that this is a nation of immigrants. I don't think is really enough. I think the tone has to be softened in the 2 months that we have ahead. And I think the Hispanic community has to be addressed, more in terms of policy and in terms of how the Republican Party is going to move away from Arizona-style laws, is going to move away from E-Verify, from basically many of the policies that many of the immigration platform that was discussed this week, basically.
We saw Jeb Bush try to do that. He used his speech today on education to mention Latinos.
Yes.
Obviously, he feels very strongly about immigration reform, but he used education as a way in. What kind of coverage is that going to get, you think, in the Latino community? Do people pick up on that? Do they know that you're talking to issues singling out the demographic?
I mean, education is a huge issue for our community because, our community is failing in education in states, for example, like Arizona. Many of the cuts in the education system have affected Latinos that attend public schools. And Governor Bush's influence in Florida is still very much felt because of his initiative on education. We even invite him on education specials and things like that. But I think that people expected something else, something more specific regarding immigration, especially because he has been the one to be, sort of the bearer of bad news in the coming weeks, telling the GOP and Mitt Romney that he needs to cater more aggressively to the Latino vote.
I realize I kind of buried the lead here. There was really big news that actually was made today with the federal court that struck down the voter ID law in Texas. Because very much because of the court said that it discriminated against minorities.
Exactly.
So, first of all, tell me what you think this means, not just for Texas, but nationally, in terms of these ID laws that are getting a great deal of pushback from a lot of Democratic groups and minority groups.
I think it does. I mean, they do prevent minorities from going to the polls. I mean, the cases of fraud have really been minimal in the last 10 years. So I just think that there are laws that want to prevent the Latino community from going to the polls, and they should be pushed back. And also, Russell Pierce was big news, I thought. this week. In the primary, exactly. And so I hope this is this is a new era in that regard. Maybe for Arizona, the beginning of something very small that'll bring forth sort of a more moderate climate in that state.
Finally, Mariana, we're going to hear tonight from Craig Romney, one of the Romney sons who speaks fluent Spanish.
We heard from him, I think. Already.
Oh, did he already speak? Did we miss him? Oh my, I feel bad.
He spoke
I feel bad.
3 paragraphs of Spanish.
That was it?
And how was his Spanish?
Well, I was amazed to see, super white middle America girl saying,
there he is.
It's Craig Romney speaking Spanish. I think that I see him as the politician within the Romney sons. He has really been the one that has gotten more notoriety. He's been really accessible to us, to Univision, always within a contained environment, not getting really specific on immigration. But I think that amongst all the speakers this week, he really he was the one who spoke the more Spanish and talked about his experience in Chile and his family being the byproduct of two immigrant grandfathers, basically.
All right, Mariana Atencio, thank you so much.
I look forward to talking to you guys next week.
Thank you.
We'll see you in Charlotte.
We're
all over again.
Woo! It feels like it's just the never-ending series of convention hotels, which
that's how it should
I
be.
think it's been quite interesting.
Amy, of course, we're big political junkies. Okay, we'll admit it. We're political nerds. There is one convention. If I could attend any convention in conventions past, there's one that I would want to be at more than anything else. If I could transport myself 100 years to see Taft versus Roosevelt. Now that was a battle. They don't make them like that anymore. Take a look. That's 2 presidents, 1 convention. It would have been a lot of fun.
That would have been a lot of fun to see that and all the deal making. I mean, this is the thing that you miss when you think about modern conventions is this idea that there was that backroom, the deal making, and the patronage. That doesn't happen anymore. Instead, what we have the internet.
That's
and
right.
we have social media. That has replaced the back rooms. Much more transparent. All right, Phoebe Connolly from Yahoo News, of course. There was a lot of talk. We had Cecilia Vega on earlier talking about the mystery guest.
The mystery guest.
And you guys asked, before it was revealed, you asked, who do you think the mystery guest would be? Who would you like it to be?
That's right. That's right.
What did our intrepid respondents tell us?
It's an informal poll, of course.
Of course. It's not scientific. It's just...
But we had folks weigh in, and the top most requested guest by ABC and Yahoo readers was Clint Eastwood. 30% of folks really wanted Clint Eastwood. Colin Powell came in second.
Oh, that's a good one.
And Nancy Reagan actually did pretty well on that showing. So.
First of all, we should know pollsters might reject this as a push poll only because Eastwood's name was out there so much. It may be a little bit skewed.
That's fine. But the fact that they see him still as somebody that they think can bring something to this floor is pretty impressive. And did you notice too that Sarah Palin only getting 10%, which is somewhat surprising, right?
Yeah.
The superstar of the 20.
That would have been a surprise. Yeah. Well, maybe it still happened. They haven't officially confirmed it yet.
This is true.
Possible. There was also all of this buzz online about Ronald Reagan's hologram. Was that just others receiving votes? It didn't get up there that high.
Yeah, you know what? We didn't actually poll on the hologram. It was too viral for us. Folks were talking about it. We couldn't update the poll fast enough.
Understood. Exactly. Now, let's talk about what people are tweeting about. We talk about this hashtag quite a bit. And are you able to say within that hashtag subject areas, topic areas, where are people getting most fired up?
All right, so we followed up on your question from yesterday, and we drilled down to take a look. When people were using the official convention hashtag, what other hashtags were they using with it? Nothing too surprising there, but still pretty interesting. Last night's theme of We Can Change It, that's one of the top used. It was in the top 5 hashtags. Paul Ryan, his name just used as a hashtag. That also made the top 5. Tampa, unsurprisingly, putting the geographic.
That's pretty boring. but okay.
Sorry. All right, but let's go to something more interesting, which is the overall sentiment this evening. So, right now the convention is net positive. The conversation around it, folks are pretty happy, and this is our team, The Signal, that's been pulling all the sentiment and doing all this. So we got to give them a shout out for it. The other thing we wanted to say, if you're watching from home, Mitt Romney needs to have 80,000 tweets during his speech in order to top how well Paul Ryan did last night. So he really needs to fire up Twitter in order to top his running mate. And also, we kind of followed up and we looked. Ann Romney, Chris Christie, and Paul Ryan all had net positive reactions on Twitter to their speeches. So we'll be watching tonight to see how Mitt Romney does.
Okay, so 80,000 tweets in how long? Over the course of his speech?
In 1 hour.
Wow.
In that 1 hour doing it. Now you also had something. You had something really interesting that you noted that came out of Twitter conversations when Sheriff Joe Arpaio got a lot of people buzzing, but not necessarily buzzing in English.
No. So he did an event today with the Arizona delegation, and during that event we saw a spike of conversation around his name, but 70% of the tweets were in Spanish, not in English. And
I'd imagine they weren't that complimentary to the sheriff of Maricopa County.
We would guess not, but we weren't able to get sentiment out of those. There wasn't a large enough sample size, unfortunately.
Oh, well, that's too bad. All right, so the next thing we're going to be looking for then tonight is what, Phoebe? Besides, we got the 80,000 tweets.
We got the 80,000 tweets, and are people going to be positive on Mitt Romney's speech tonight on Twitter? That's really what we're looking to see. His wife did it. Paul Ryan pulled it off. Will Mitt Romney pull it off?
Oh, it's a very... we actually have something to look for. I look forward to it.
We're gonna have a counter going. Phoebe Connolly from Yahoo News, thank you for being here this week, all week. We'll see it again next week as well. And
absolutely.
We'll keep a buzz on what's going on live.
In fact, that's what we should be doing. We should have a Twitter counter.
A Twitter counter.
For Charlotte.
1, 2.
That will be. We'll just count them. Count them by hand.
Manually,
how many times?
Because we're journalists, that's how we have to count things on our hands anyway. So it may take a little while. What do you think?
No, I think I'm going to leave it to the pros who know how to do this with real attention. But it is true, though, Rick, that just following Twitter and following Facebook has changed the way that we see this convention. I mean, there is just an instant reaction. I remember watching Ann Romney's speech right out there, but also with one eye on the Twitter stream, and watching those tweets just come in one after the other, after the other, after the other. So it is a way that people feel like they can finally really connect with the people that they see on their television screen or, of course, see on their computer screen.
Well, I ran into someone from Twitter and I said, man, you guys are doing a great job getting the word out. And he says, we're not doing anything. This is all organic. They put the hashtag on everything out there. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about what we're going to see tonight, because now we're seeing Brent Bennett from Massachusetts speaking up on the stage right now. We're seeing a lot of the Mitt Romney biography begin to come into focus. He actually does have a good story to tell. You can talk about his time in the private sector at Bain Capital. You can talk about his time running the Winter Olympics. You can talk about his time as governor of Massachusetts. You can talk his time even as a candidate, leading the debate. But he just hasn't done it yet. And I'm surprised, actually, that they waited till this last night to begin to do it. I'm surprised that some of these themes didn't get teased out over Tuesday and Wednesday.
Although, fundamentally, it still is Mitt Romney who needs to make the case. And ultimately, if it has to come from him, I think that's what people are waiting for and looking for. And one other thing that people are waiting for is the iconic moment of every single convention, and that is the infamous balloon drop. And our David Wright has actually sat down with Balloon Guy. That's right. There's a guy who's responsible for putting all those balloons up there and making sure they drop. David, what does it take to be a balloon guy? Do you have to go get a master's or something in this, or special training?
The balloon guy is uniquely qualified for this job. He has been tying balloons for 43 years. He says he got his start at age 15 and a half tying balloons at Disneyland and selling balloons there. He has been doing every Republican convention since 1988, and at least during his time there have been no problems. Of course, this is the symbolic moment that caps off the nomination, the crowning moment when the candidates and all the people here are anointed in red, white, and blue balloons. Sometimes it has been known not to go off so well. 1980, Jimmy Carter up for re-election. Here's what happened there. Have a quick look here. The balloons were described as falling one by one. and it was taken as a very bad omen for Carter's chances for winning a second term. Of course, he did not win a second term. Same thing happened 2004 to John Kerry. The CNN actually happened to be tapped into the audio from the control room, and you could hear the guy saying, more balloons, more balloons, more balloons, and they didn't seem to drop. And that, again, a bad omen. The Republicans seem to have this thing down, in part because of Treb Henning, who told me that he personally can tie 1,000 balloons an hour. He did it this time with the help of a local high school. They have 120,000 balloons up there. Some quick facts. World record for the number of balloons in 2004, George Bush, 100,000 balloons at Madison Square Garden. John McCain doubled that number with Treb Henning's help, 200,000 balloons, and that was, of course, the year when you saw Andrea Mitchell virtually drowning in balloons on the convention floor. And this year they've scaled it back, 120,000 balloons, but fingers crossed it's going to go off okay.
Well, and David, it wasn't just that there was a malfunction in 2000 and it caught the director saying more balloons, but they also caught him with some colorful language about those balloons, right?
Indeed, indeed. The CNN, I think, had to do some bleeping, and I think his expletives were probably repeated all across the Kerry campaign that night as well.
Well, tell us what that means when you say tie the balloons. Are you talking about somebody actually sitting there by hand tying a balloon like you did for your birthday party when you were 10 years old?
I mean, they do. They don't have to blow them up. They're not sitting there going. And so there's not a bunch of people that passed out on the floor here. They had the help of some compressed gas. But this guy does tie them himself, and of course he teaches the other people to tie them. But 120,000 balloons, hand-tied. They're sort of hoisted up to the rafters and put up there in sausage shape. Sometimes they color code them, red balloons, white balloons, blue balloons. These ones are all mixed together. But of course they also have Secret Service issues because they have to have about 6 guys up on those rafters pulling strings at the direction of a man in the control room here. And, you know, having anybody up on those catwalks is bound to be a security concern. So every year they're not quite sure what's going to happen, and they're always just keeping their fingers crossed.
And in addition to that, David, we understand that there's actually waves of balloons. It's not like one big balloon drop. There's actually a rolling series of balloon drops as different people come on stage tonight.
Yes, and my suspicion here is that this is an attempt to avoid that Andrea Mitchell moment. In part, they're kind of keeping the enthusiasm alive as all those Romneys come onto the stage, and they're also probably trying to avoid an avalanche for the Wisconsin delegation as they're up cheering for Paul Ryan.
All right, David Wright on the floor watching the balloons. They are going to be falling here in just a couple of hours. We'll have all of that and more, of course, at our live stream. We are here at abcnews.com, at yahoonews.com, also streaming on the iPad. You can watch all of the speakers if you're interested in seeing what's going on the stage. We'll bring you the best, the highlights as we go along.
I mean,
you can watch
again,
them all streaming.
They're hand-tied. I cannot tie a balloon right now.
We built that. We tied that.
We did tie that. That should have been the theme. Okay. I don't know how much our next guest knows about balloons, but he knows a little something about politics. It's Chris Moody from Yahoo News. And Chris, you were down on the floor, and you found the newest, I don't know what we call this, giveaway, tchotchke, or piece of equipment, I guess, that they would like, the Romney campaign would like the delegates to use.
Well, there's different states that have different kinds of things. I wasn't able to grab one, but I'll have to come up a little bit later and get one. But they have giant masks of Mitt Romney.
Oh, we need a mask.
That you can wear. Yeah. I will bring up the mask.
Right.
Now the Michigan delegation has these huge mitts like you
we
wave.
got the mitt.
You got the mitt.
We got the mitt. Yeah, we got the mitt.
Don't mess with Mitt. They were just passing these down and
like that.
And I've got here a towel. I think it was. Is this Wisconsin? I believe it's from Wisconsin.
Or is it Pennsylvania? Is it a terrible towel?
No,
like Pennsylvania?
Well, I want to tell a little story about the terrible towel. You know, Paul Ryan went to Pennsylvania. He's a Wisconsinite, and he waved the terrible towel. Now he's a Green Bay Packers fan. Pennsylvania, you know,
right.
The Steelers. And so he got some trouble from Green Bay Packers fans for waving that towel. But I talked to Governor Scott Walker and said, you know, are you ashamed of him? He said, no, the terrible towels are made in Wisconsin.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to burst any balloons here.
Oh, no.
However, we can read it right there. You probably can't get it right there, but it is made in China. Not the word that you want to see on this convention floor this week.
Yeah, not the we built it theme they were looking for.
That's right. Now, Chris, you've also been talking to some Tea Partiers out there, and you're detecting, even at this late stage of the convention, some frustration, some angst out there over this relationship that Mitt Romney has to the base.
Well, just a little bit, because as you probably noticed, there hasn't been much presence of the Tea Party here at the convention. The performances here and the speakers have been very controlled, and we haven't heard the word Tea Party here on the floor.
I find that shocking.
I'll have to go back and do a full, complete audit, but
I would bet that's true. I mean, when you look at how negatively the term Tea Party polls right now, that doesn't surprise me. But they put on stage a whole bunch of people who are identified as Tea Partiers. So I find that really interesting that there's a frustration there. They put Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio obviously has a starring role tonight. Ted Cruz, who's not even elected yet, got a big starring role. And, of course, a lot of the superstars from 2010. So is it that they feel like they just haven't gotten a shout-out publicly?
Well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a strong frustration, but there still is uncertainty about Mitt Romney among members of the Tea Party. I was talking with Matt Kibbe. He's the president of Freedom Works, which is one of the lead organizations for the Tea Party. And I asked him, what do you want to hear Mitt Romney say? And he's like, I just want to know what he's going to do. What does he stand for? I want specifics. He said that the selection of Paul Ryan was a good a step in the right direction for him to see where Romney's going to take the country if he is elected. But that's what they're looking for, is specifics from Romney.
And I'm sure he wanted to hear the word Tea Party mentioned as well.
They might like that. It'll be interesting to see if Romney mentions it. I doubt he will tonight. It wasn't in his prepared remarks.
That's not where you begin this. I don't think that's where you begin this discussion. They're never going to love him. I think that's clear from the talk on the floor. Now, how does Ron Paul fit into this? Because you can't walk through this convention floor without running into people who are still talking up Ron Paul.
You know, I was just down there, and I snapped a picture of a gal who had a shirt that said Minority Report on it and a picture of tape against her lips. So, you know, they're still a little bit angry. There's talk that there may be some kind of dramatic walkout during Romney's speech. Not all of them are obviously going to participate. But, you know, there is frustration about how the delegates worked out for Ron Paul. But I think that the Republicans and the Romney campaign are just hoping that this is just going to fade away over time.
So is the expectation tonight that when Mitt Romney comes out to the floor, we're going to see the towels waving, the mitts waving, people jumping up and down? Or is your sense from being out on that floor that they're going to be excited, they're going to be enthusiastic, but they may not be jumping up out of their seats?
Well, we're waiting to see that enthusiasm. We saw it last night with Condoleezza Rice, but on the first night when Mitt Romney clinched the delegate roll call, they were like, cool, we clinched it. There wasn't this huge hurrah, and I think they're hoping that it's going to climax tonight, and everyone will have their mitts and their masks and their terrible towels made in China. But you know, it's something that they really are hoping for. So it'll be a really strong indication of the enthusiasm what we see here tonight.
All right, well, you're gonna have to bring a mask back with you
Absolutely.
Next time you're up here. Chris Moody from Yahoo. Really appreciate you being here.
Now we got to look at where the mitts made.
Yeah,
you know, now that we got that under control, I don't know. I don't think they stamp it on here.
There must be a good American company.
Must be. All right. Thank you, Chris Moody, for joining us, and thank you for bringing us our treats and also that very interesting factoid about the Tea Party.
I'm going down to the floor. I'll get some more stuff for you guys.
Excellent.
Love it.
Most excellent. Most excellent. Once again, we are hashtag into the 2012 GOP. Help us trend on Twitter. Help us get the word out about this convention. We're having a great time here up in the booth, watching us all night long at abcnews.com and at yahoonews.com. We are seeing more pictures, more of the sense of Mitt Romney coming into view. We also heard a few minutes ago from someone, a church friend of Romney's, who actually said the word Mormon on stage, which is not something we've heard that often. Speak of Tea Party a little bit, but even less of that.
Well, and what we're hearing right now, these are stories, these are real personal stories from folks who have interacted with Mitt Romney on a much more personal level. And if you can see behind me and hear, you can hear a pin drop out here. These are people with very emotional stories. Let's listen to this speech for a moment.
To us and extend us sympathy and express their love. It seems to me, when it comes to loving our neighbor, we can talk about it or we can live it. The Romneys live it every single day. When the world looks at Mitt Romney, they may see him as the founder of a successful business, the leader of the Olympic Games, or a governor. When I see Mitt Romney,
Well, we're seeing a little bit of emotion here, even describing the Mitt Romney story coming into view. All right, joining us in the booth now is Jason Jones, here from The Daily Show. Mr. Emotional, once again.
I'm sorry, he just made so much money. I'm very emotional.
I will testify to the fact this is genuine tears. He was tearing long before we cut to the camera open.
I'm all right.
So you guys have been active here, doing a show every night.
We've been around, yes.
How's it been? What do you think? What do you feel?
It's exhausting.
Yes.
As you know, you're doing the same amount of work we are, only less funny.
No, ours is we're doing harder work.
Did you know?
I'm much harder.
We have a mitt. Okay, do you have one of these?
No.
All right. Well, then, Mr. Funny Guy.
But if you,
what are you gonna do with that?
Well, if you think hacky puns are funny, then you are funnier than me.
You may be a Republican.
It's very true. It's very true. What is this a funny convention?
Is it funny?
Yeah.
You tell me. There's about 70,000 balloons up there.
120 we just learned.
120,000 balloons.
Yeah.
That's right. 120,000
Hand-tied.
balloons. Hand-tied by individuals.
Yes.
Our country's going broke, and we're hand-tying balloons. Of course it's funny.
Now, one thing I've heard a lot from folks who are here, and I have felt this, is getting in and out of this convention has felt a little bit like 1970s Berlin. I mean, it's like a lot of guys with guns. There are big barriers everywhere, and a feeling really of being in a military type state. Would you get that sense, or do you?
I saw 7 guys on horses surround one Ron Paul supporter the other day. I think he was outmatched.
I don't know.
The horses I've never quite understood at these things. Now, tell me though, who was the funniest Republican candidate this year? Who were you rooting for over at the Daily Show? Was it Newt? Was it Santorum? Who was the best? Who keeps you in business?
The Canaanator. Herman Cain.
Of course.
Come on.
Yeah, 999.
999. It doesn't get any simpler than that.
Yeah.
999. I know it doesn't make any sense, but 999.
It was very simple.
It's simple to understand. It's simple for my simple brain to understand.
Now, why is he not a correspondent for you all?
He's applied.
He has applied.
He has to find out this way. Sorry, you didn't get the job.
Wow.
So there he is.
Sorry.
Awkward.
Sorry, really awkward. Is he not funny enough, or it's just? I mean, he'd have to boot one of you off.
Sometimes there's such a thing as too funny.
So have you found any hats out there? Anything good? The craziest?
Hats is very 2008, isn't it?
I think it's 1912 a little bit.
Hats feel a little JV to me.
So where are we on to now?
I think we're on to buttons.
Buttons?
Yeah.
This feels like a button year to you.
2004 was a button year. It's every other year. The buttons are back. I'm talking a lot of buttons. Like you need 50 buttons on you to really, really sell your enthusiasm for these candidates.
I'm surprised you didn't come with face paint or something like that as well. That seems to be big, too. I saw people coloring themselves up instead of a button.
It's not funny if I do it. It's just funny me looking at them, having spent the whole day painting their face.
So yes, well, that's true, too.
So the Romney boys, they have 5 sons. Is one funnier than the rest?
I think Shovel's pretty funny. Is that his name?
Yes, that's exactly right. Yes, you got that exactly right.
Or Slurry, his name.
Slurry Romney?
I forget.
Do you think that works? I'm not sure.
I forget. I'm not good with names.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
So what's the broadcast been like here tonight? What are the stories that you've been covering?
We have covered maybe a little bit of a discrepancy between the platform and the policy, let's say. That was funny. We've talked to people about a multitude of different hypocrisies that can be found.
What's the craziest thing in this platform that no one at home knows about?
I'm going to say all of it. Because people don't like to read. They just want to hear 999. Simple. Keep it simple, stupid.
But people in this room actually care about that document. They had big fights over what's going to be adopted.
They do care. You know who doesn't care? Level 5.
the donors.
The chess players.
The folks up there.
The pawns are just, they're there to lay down.
Yeah.
Level 5's really controlling this whole thing.
Oh, that is?
Yeah. Have you been up there?
No.
Oh, they're sipping on Johnny Walker Blue up there.
Really?
Oh.
These guys are getting chicken nuggets and diet soda.
So did you get up there?
I got up there.
What does it look like? Or you were drinking the blue, so you're not reporting back?
It's just Coke and hookers up there.
We should note that there's actually no cocaine or hookers in the building. Just that was a joke.
We're at the disclaimer, right?
Joke.
Yes,
joke. Put up the joke runner. It's the joke runner's coming.
We can do that anytime.
You're a little sensitive.
So you'll be in Charlotte next week as well?
We're going to Charlotte, yes.
What's the funniest thing that the Democrats have to offer?
The Democrats, they dress in, let's face it, socks and sandals and fanny packs.
Yeah.
They,
you were actually getting poked by a
Wow.
delegate.
Wow, someone's poking me.
That is something new.
I know, I'm sorry.
What's that? What?
There's
a.
Oh.
It is
a convention. You're right. I wasn't even listening. Oh, okay. All right.
We're gonna keep the conversation here in the box. That was an interesting interactive experience.
I've never got poked before.
It's like Facebook, only
only you know what? It hurts a lot more.
Yeah. Well,
this is now a first for you.
I just got poked by she was what? 7-year-old woman?
Well, it happens.
You shut up.
Shut up. And I think the point she was trying to make, look, if you want to watch the speeches, we've told you, they're online. Watch them. They're streaming on the iPad, abcnews.com,
yes,
yahoonews.com. We're bringing you all this all night long. We're trying to bring a little fun, a little levity to an interesting thing. So we were talking a little about Charlotte. President Obama, funny guy, not funny guy? Is he funnier now because he's been around a while, people got used to him, you can have some fun with him?
When his teleprompter is up and the jokes are laid out for him, he's very, very funny because he's got some good writers.
Yes. Just like Jon Stewart?
Yeah.
You said it. I didn't say it. Listen.
Joke.
Run the joke. It's a joke.
Now, when are you going to get the first Comedy Central interview with Mitt Romney?
President Mitt Romney? Or candidate Mitt Romney?
Well, either one.
I don't know if he's going to do it. I think he has to do it, but I don't think he'll do it.
To win over that coveted Comedy Central vote.
Let me ask you this. Why would he do it?
The young people, they listen to Zeppelin, I hear.
They do.
Right?
They do. They wear their pantaloons. And they put on them. They go to the discotheque.
Look, Marco Rubio was on the show this week.
He was on the show. Yeah.
Trying to reach a younger demographic, trying to reach a politically engaged demographic, right?
I think candidate Romney is a little afraid to go off message, and the show is very off message. So I'm not sure he'll show up. It would be great if he did. Let's hope he does, because let's face it, it would be great.
But maybe there's a larger message there for Republicans.
When our president was just a candidate, he came on, and he, sorry, that guy's screaming at me now. It's like, you shut up there. He came on, and we got him the very same day as Mario Lopez.
Really?
So it was a bit of a
wow.
Mm-hmm.
That does not happen very often.
No
way,
Jose.
So that was like the height of.
Well, he did Mario first, then he did us. So.
All right. Well, Jason Jones from Comedy Central, we thank you for being here
Joke,
tonight.
Mario Lopez. Joke.
Try to stay safe out there. It's getting hostile.
Be very careful. I would go out this way.
There's a lot of poking going on.
All right.
All right,
well,
Jason, thank you.
We're doing a little more flashback here of conventions that were, and this is a convention that we were alive for. I think I was. I don't know if you were, but this is the 1988 convention, George H.W. Bush. Take a look.
I'm the one who will not raise taxes. My opponent now says he'll raise them as a last resort or a third resort. But when a politician talks like that, you know that's one resort he'll be checking into. And my opponent won't rule out raising taxes, but I will, and the Congress will push me to raise taxes, and I'll say no, and they'll push, and I'll say no, and they'll push again, and I'll say to them, read my lips. No new taxes.
Not a moment that people in this crowd want to remember.
No.
That's known as exactly what you don't want to do at a convention, Republican or Democrat, is to say something that you're not going to keep a promise on.
Yes, and I don't expect that we will hear anything like that tonight, but we are happy to be joined by somebody who is in Congress, wasn't in Congress then, but is in Congress now, Kathy McMorris-Rogers from Spokane, Washington.
Yes.
Coming in and joining us, thank you so much, also a member of the House leadership. So tell us a little bit about your expectations for tonight. And, we've heard so much about this women's vote and how important this is for Mitt Romney to shrink this gender gap. And a lot of talk about the group of women he needs to talk to aren't just any women, but they're really a very narrow group of women. Some people call them Walmart moms or waitress moms. How can he show that he relates to that demographic and can really sell himself there?
Well, the story of Mitt and Ann Romney is one that they started. We heard from Ann Romney on Tuesday night, you know, their first apartment, that there wasn't a lot in there, and yet they took a risk, they started a business, and they were ultimately successful. And I think what he's going to convey tonight is that is the dream, that is what he wants for every person in America, is that opportunity to go out there. And right now in America, we actually have more women that are starting businesses, or, you know, that entrepreneurial spirit is very much alive. It's just, as I talk to them, it's very difficult, and a lot of women are the ones around the table having, you know, struggling with rising gas prices and rising food prices and health insurance costs, and so they see where all of those policies do make a direct impact on them and their household and their children and the opportunities that they have. And I think as much as we can, as Republicans, continue to say that we recognize it's tough and that we have some solutions, we believe that there's a better way than continuing down the current path.
Lenore Romney, Mitt Romney's mom, of course, ran for Senate in Michigan, wasn't successful. We hear a lot about George Romney. Mitt Romney mentions him all the time. But tonight, we're going to hear about the Lenore Romney campaign. As a woman who's run for office yourself, what does that message mean? This is Mitt Romney from a politically active family on both sides.
Well, I think it's really exciting that his mom ran for office, and that she was really a trailblazer in that regard. In recent years, we've seen a record number of women running for office on both sides, but on the Republican side especially, when you look at 2010, we had a record number of women run for office in 2010, a record number that were elected to the House of Representatives. 4 out of 6 women that are governors right now are Republican. We have a record number of women that are in the state legislatures, and so I think what we're seeing is that women are getting more involved in politics as they understand that it's not just. And I think for many years women were more focused on their community activities or their career or their family, and now we're seeing where more are saying, you know what, I need to get involved in politics. I need to carve out the time to get involved. And it's exciting to see more Republican women that are getting involved, running for office, and doing it successfully.
Let's talk a little bit about your job. You get up to Congress. If indeed Mitt Romney's elected, you're going to have to face what we're talking about is the fiscal cliff. Maybe a lame duck session. We're going to have to deal with big things like taxes and big cuts in spending. Mitt Romney is elected. What kind of message is that going to send to Republicans? And are Republicans going to go into that thinking they have some sort of mandate when it comes to this?
Well, Mitt Romney, if he's elected, what is most appealing to me about him is that he has proven he knows how to get the job done. The leadership that he brings from his experience as governor in the Olympics, his problem solving, that is tremendous. And we have some really tough decisions to make.
Right. So, and you've heard Paul Ryan talk about this. I'm sure you'll hear Governor Romney talk about this, making those tough decisions. So if that's true, do you think that he will tell folks in your caucus, and of course over on the Senate side, these are the tough choices you need to make. I'm the leader now of the party. Here's what I'd like you to do. How would you react to that?
He's going to be working with us. I am very confident. Even now, I've been serving as his House liaison, and he's interested in meeting with every member, hearing what their ideas are, what their priorities are. They've even talked to me about Democrats that they could be reaching out to. So they're already
to switch parties.
No, to work with them across the aisle on all of these important issues.
So they're already making those kind of inroads or those kind of contacts.
Well, I'm not sure that they've actually called any Democrats, but they are already. There's already been some, as we're thinking through the lame duck and those first 100 days and how they're going to approach it, there's a real desire, yes, to tackle the tough problems, but to bring the people along and get both the people and the plans in place so that we can be ready to go.
Right, so there is a lame duck strategy then that's being thought through.
Oh, I think it's important that we do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about your expectations then. Your part of the country has not been particularly, at least at the federal level, not as successful for presidential candidates. But the West is a real battleground this year, and a lot of talk about Latino voters as well. You know, when you go out You see where the gap is right now. It's pretty substantial. What do you hear when you talk to Republican and Latinos who say, I don't know that I feel like that the Republican Party relates to me? Latino voters saying this to Republicans, I'm sorry. I don't know if I can relate to the Republican Party. What's the outreach like? What are you doing in your own job in the House, and then what do you think Mitt Romney needs to be doing in his campaign?
Well, it's us opening up the door. I think it is very important what we're doing this convention, highlighting many of the Hispanics, Latinos that are in the Republican Party already, the women, putting that face forward that the Republican Party is a very diverse party, that there are people from all different walks of life, all different experiences that believe in the principles, the values that have made America great, have lived the American dream, and that's what we want moving forward. And that it means that we need people that are going to be honest with us as far as what the role of government is and the obligations that government has taken on and this fiscal cliff that we face. But recognizing that the Republican Party is very diverse, and I think the more that we can continue to make America aware, make Hispanics aware, women aware that they are welcome in this party, that there's a lot of us that are already there. I think that's really going to help.
All right, Kathy McMorris Rogers, Republican from Washington State. You got your work cut out for you. The liaison to the House of Representatives. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much
for having me.